Kitsap Sun editorial board, meeting with the Port Orchard mayoral candidates. What we'll do, like I explained, is let you each have 3 minutes to begin and introduce yourselves. Larry, we'll let you go first.
Okay, I'm Larry Capola. I'm the incumbent mayor. When I was elected mayor in 2007, the voters gave me a mandate: fix the crime problem, fix the financial problems, fix the negative business climate, the reputation the city earned because of it, and fix the city's internal machinery and create a... The mayor is the chief administrative official of the city, and basically what amounts to the CEO of a $28 million municipal corporation, of which the stockholders are the shareholders, or the citizens are the shareholders. This job is actually much, much more about management skills and leadership skills and business experience than it'll ever be about politics. The day-to-day work is business work. It is not political work. By putting my 30-plus years of business experience to work in Port Orchard, our city is now in better financial shape than most other cities in our state, and proves that you truly can run a government like a business if you know how to and you mean to. In fact, we just finished our last state audit with no findings or recommendations, but I think what's more important is the compliment that we got from the state auditor. He said that Port Orchard could serve as an example for other cities for how to handle their money. I think that was huge. I've used my management ability and experience to put competent staff in place, which is the envy of the other cities. And don't take my word for it. Talk to the other elected officials. Ask them. When I was elected, we were number 6 in the state for violent crime for cities our size. We will now not even make the top 50, and we have not any year that I've been the mayor. Dealing with crime and reducing crime was my #1 campaign promise, and I feel like I've kept that promise. Port Orchard is a safer place now than it's been to raise your family, own a business, to live, to do anything than it's been any time in the last 25 years. I'm real proud of that. I'm proud of these accomplishments, and while I've kept my promise to the voters, I feel there's a lot more to do. Hopefully when the economy turns around, we'll be first out of the starting gate to get a lot more things done. So in considering their vote, when I'm out doorbelling and talking to voters, I'm asking them to just ask themselves one question and to answer it honestly. Considering the state of the economy, considering the shape that the city is in financially, considering the 63% reduction in crime, the positive business climate that we have in Port Orchard, and the high level of customer service, is Port Orchard a better place now than it was 4 years ago? I believe it is, and I ask people if they'll answer that honestly. I would appreciate their vote. So that's my story, sticking to it.
Tim, go ahead.
Well, my name is Tim Mathis. I'm a longtime South Kitsap resident, about 47 years. I've lived in Port Orchard proper 27 years, thereabouts. Raised 4 children in the South Kitsap School District. My background is, I feel I probably should tell you a little bit about myself because I don't have, I'm not an incumbent. I did run for county commissioner, however, 3.5 years ago. So I'm not unfamiliar with this room and what it's like to run a candidacy. But my wife and I, like I said, raised our children here in Port Orchard. Port Orchard is my home. I'm very proud of the city. I love the city. And so when I had this opportunity to run for mayor, and this time, after the last time my friends asked me to run, this time people I didn't know asked that I run for this mayor position. So I felt it was the right time and the right thing to do. So here I am. I did get started in this endeavor fairly late. I wasn't planning it months and months in advance. I just started probably 8 to 12 weeks ago, and seriously considered it about 10 weeks ago. So at any rate, I'm still getting up to speed. But one of the things that has bothered me the last several years are some of the directions that the present administration is taking us. One of them is the amount of annexations, not the fact that we are doing the annexations, but I would like to be more confident that we've looked at the actual cost of providing the infrastructure in these annexations. Now, I'm sure that the administration has looked at those, it just hasn't explained it to the public like I think it should be, so that we are confident that we can take on these annexations and actually produce the things, the infrastructure improvements that are going to be necessary. Bethel Corridor is a prime example. The Bethel Corridor has always been problematic. It has a lot of road infrastructure problems. If it was an easy fix, if it was an economical fix, the Kitsap County Commissioners would have fixed it long ago, and they have not. So what we do now is very, very important. Now, I do know that the City Council has agreed to set aside 50% of the budget, or of the income, the new income, so to speak, for that project, and that's a good place to start, but I hope we have more plans than just that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm actually going to let you kind of continue along that thread. You say this is something that other folks were asking you to do, but I'd like to know a little bit more of what your goals would be then. Larry posed the question, is Port Orchard how do you say it, a better place now than it was 4 years ago? And I guess I'd like you to answer that question.
In my opinion, not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. We have been in excellent financial position and condition prior to 2007. I truly don't believe that this administration has improved our financial position any. In some cases, they've made some investments that, in my opinion, don't even qualify as investments. They're simply outgoes. One thing that comes to my mind is the purchase of a parking lot on Prospect Street right across from the courthouse. Let's see, what are some other examples of that? The Tremont Street widening project has been kind of just sitting there as far as I'm concerned. And I think probably not all of that is the problem of the present administration, but it's the economy too, and it's funds coming from the state and other funds are drying up. And I think we need to be aware of that and get ahead of the curve.
Can I just clarify that one? Are you saying it should not have been started?
No, I'm not saying it should have been started, but there was an aggressive timeline that I think we're going to have to rethink, and just because of the financial situation.
But the project itself does not bother you, or do you disagree with the project itself?
No, I don't disagree with the project in whole, but I disagree with the timeline that we're looking at for it.
Larry, do you want to respond to the?
Oh, I'd love to.
The thing about the financial situation?
Sure. Mr. Mathis is incorrect in saying the city was in good financial shape when I was elected. When I was elected, we were dipping into reserves to make payroll. Think about that a moment. And the first thing I did was I imposed a 5% across the board spending cut to all departments for everything. Went through all of the spending priorities. What did we spend money on? Went through the budget. It took me some time to get my arms around the budget, and how it worked. But once I did, we imposed a hiring freeze, and we looked at all the things that the city spends money on, and what could we not spend money on, and what could we delay spending money on. One issue was the Public Works Department kept a lot of equipment in reserve, motors and pumps and those kind of things, so when they burn out, we'd have one on hand to fix it. Well, we had more than we needed on hand. We had a surplus of these things just sitting at the old fire station up on Sydney. And they're not things that you can't get in a day if you need them. So there's no reason to have 5 of them sitting there, because what's the chances of 5 of them burning up the same day? So, I looked at stuff like that. I looked at everything that we spend money on. Now, in dealing with the annexations, you need to understand a little bit about how the Growth Management Act works and our relationship with the Puget Sound Regional Council. The Puget Sound Regional Council has the say over our comprehensive plan. They get to vote on whether it's valid or not, just as they do every other city in the county, because we are affiliated with them. We are one of the 4 counties. And it is they who have decided that cities will annex their urban growth areas by 2025. So we sat down, myself and the city treasurer and the public works director and the planning director, and looked at, what's our urban growth area look like? How big is it? What do we need to annex? And what kind of timeline? We have put together a schedule. We have a map, and the map has numbers on it. This is the first annexation. This is number 2 annexation. This is number 3 annexation. The Bethel Corridor annexation is citizen-driven. The city can't go out and knock on those doors, but private individuals did, and that's how we got there. It will be the largest public works project in the city's history. The road isn't as bad off as Mr. Mathis would have you believe, but it will need improvement. I believe the last estimate that I saw was $43 million to improve that from the Sedgwick Road interchange back to the city limits. But that included a lot of stuff that could be value engineered. The council agreed to put 50% of the revenue that comes from there towards debt service. What comes from there is about $1.4 million a year. But there will also be other money available. The Puget Sound Regional Council, bless her heart, hands out transportation money. That's why we belong to it, I think. I'm not real sure why that decision was made years ago, and it's not one I particularly agree with. But they hand out the federal transportation dollars. Bethel is on their radar screen. It's on the state's radar screen. There's going to be quite a bit of state transportation money available this year. And one of the things that I did was got the council to agree to hire a lobbyist for the city. And they're already working on getting us some of that transportation money for Bethel. So there's that. The parking lot. The building that sat on that parking lot was purchased by the previous administration at the height of the real estate boom, for way more than I believe it was worth. And we had rented it out, and it had a positive income of about $2,400 a month. Should the city have bought it or not, they originally bought it as part of the property acquisition for the proposed parking garage on Prospect Street. Well, in looking at the building, what we discovered was that there were serious mold issues and water issues in the building. Now, whether the previous administration had an inspection done that looked at these things, I don't know. But once we discovered them, we immediately vacated the tenants and had to decide what to do. So do we want a building sitting there that people, could squat in or do whatever? No, we don't. It's a major liability, so we tore it down. So what do we do with it? Well, one of the problems around City Hall is parking. And so we felt we would make a parking lot out of that. It's not a permanent parking lot, which is why we didn't pave it. But it does free up 21 parking spaces around City Hall. What we're parking in there is city vehicles and employee parking. So that was the rationale behind that. But if it was generating $2,400 a month with no problem, it still would be. So I don't know that it was a bad decision when it was purchased by the previous administration or not. And finally, Tremont. Tremont actually should be done now. The problem was the previous administration left or did not file some federal paperwork for transportation dollars. And when that happened, our application went to the bottom of the stack. So we're just working our way through the stack for funding now. We lost $3.5 million then, plus some other money that was depending on that. Once we got that, it triggered other money, and we lost all that money from that. So that's the story on Tremont. It should have been completed long ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Tim, can I get your opinion on the lobbyist issue? Because as Mayor says, that's kind of in part what's going to be counted on to get some of these projects done in the future that that you just criticized them about. I'm curious if that was a decision that you agreed with to pursue a lobbyist for the city, and
Well, yes, I agreed that we could possibly use the help of a lobbyist. I wasn't exactly in agreement that we should increase the lobbyist's amount. What I would have done is reduce the scope that we required from the lobbyist.
what in your opinion, what then would a lobbyist's role be for the city? If you were elected mayor, what would you kind of envision that lobbyist's role as?
It would depend on each year, the amount of things that the council wants to really pressure the legislature on. And then we evaluate and see how much time we really need that lobbyist to spend for us, and then we would allocate the money. It's just at this day and age, in this time with the financial situation looming, and I've talked to Representative Sequist, for example, and he says the state is underestimating the amount of money that they're going to get, and it's going to be a lot worse than what it appears right now. So all of the pass-through money from the state is going to be impacted there, and therefore our income will be impacted. So I'm just thinking that rather than increase the budget on these items, we should really sharpen our pencils and see if we can't keep them the same or decrease them and still get some bang for our buck. So that's what I would have encouraged the council to do, is decide on prioritizing what those lobbyists needed to work on and see if we could keep it at the same price or maybe even reduce it somewhat.
I'd like to comment on
I was going to ask you a very similar question.
The lobbyist last year was the first time the city had ever hired a lobbyist. And it was one of my #1 goals when I got elected, because we're one of the few cities that didn't have one. We paid $25,000 for the lobbyist last year. They got us $700,000 in capital budget money. I think that's a pretty good return on investment. In a year when there wasn't very much capital budget money handed out. What we're using the money for is we are under a mandate from the Department of Ecology to fix.
Can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
How much money was received in the year before the lobbyist was acting on your behalf?
0. So we got $700,000 the first year. We're under a state mandate to fix the DeKalb Pier from the Department of Ecology and to extend the pier and take the floating dock way further out. It's about a $1.5 million project. So we've gotten half the money to fix it. That's what they did for us, working with our state legislators. Lobbyists don't work part-time. We got a deal the first year because they wanted our business, and I was able to negotiate a good deal. That's part of the mayor's job, is you're the chief negotiator, you're the business guy. That's your job. And I feel like I got us a good deal. This year we're having to pay what they normally would charge, which is $36,000 for basically, a year's worth of work. But we get a report from them every week about what they're doing. If they need help with something, they don't hesitate to call me and say, Larry, would you call this legislature? Larry, would you come to Olympia and do this? And I'm always right there. That's my job. But we have worked very closely with them. We're very happy with the job that they've done. We have one council member that feels like we shouldn't have spent the money, but I don't think you can argue with the return on investment. I mean, even if we'd have paid the full freight, it was still a good return on investment. So,
so you're comfortable?
I am. I'm very comfortable because knowing what's coming down the pike with, the transportation money, they're in there right now working that for us. I mean, they're talking to legislators already. That's their job, and they're reporting to me every week about what they're doing.
Other than the transportation money, what will you kind of set as your priority?
Well, we're setting our legislative agenda right now. We never even had a legislative agenda before I was elected. We never talked to our legislators at all. Derek Kilmer has been very, very helpful to me and very supportive of me because I'm the one who instituted this. And he's like, I wanted to help Port Orchard under the last mayor, and I couldn't even get a return phone call. he says, I can't get rid of you, you know, so at any rate, we're forming the legislative agenda right now. In fact, we have a meeting with them next week about, there's a number of items that we want to look at. One of the things is the Inner Harbor Line for Department of Natural Resources. We're paying a lease on what is now a parking lot that years ago was where the original harbor line was. And, you know, over the years, I don't know how many years ago, but 50 years ago maybe, when they drove all those pilings and put all that fill in there and made the parking lot that we have now, we're still paying the lease on the water, you know, when we should be paying the lease where the harbor line is now, not where it used to be 50 years ago. That's one item that they're working on for us. The transportation money, of course. And then we're looking at what else is going to come down the pike. And one other thing, when Tim talks about, you know, the money, how much money there is, capital budget money, which is project money, and general fund revenue are two different pots of money. And I don't think Tim understands that. Capital budget money comes from the gas tax and other taxes like that. The general fund revenues are the same. They are going to decline. I was at a meeting with Aram Raha, the state financial forecaster, and he said, and this was almost a year ago, that it will take us till the end of 2012 to have as many jobs in the state as we had at the beginning of 2008. That's pretty scary. But we've tried to, you know, get our share of what there is. I have helped local businesses that have created some jobs. One.
Actually, I'm going to have you hold on.
Okay.
I think that'll be another question.
Okay.
I wanted to let Tim
Well, I
respond.
just wanted to go back to the parking lot thing, and I just want to sum up my thoughts on that. I'm not saying that I blame him for the purchase, although it was appraised at less than 300. It was 298,000 when it was purchased, and they purchased it for about 480,000. So it was a bad purchase, and he's the one that signed the papers.
No, I
because
did not.
You were after,
No,
it was after
I-
you were elected
No.
that the purchase
No.
was actually
No.
signed off.
No.
But anyway,
Well,
let me go on. The total cost of that parking lot now, I don't blame him for the purchase, but I do blame him for getting rid of $2,400 a month income. Because now we have a $700,000 plus piece of dirt that the assessor says is worth less than $98,000. Now, anybody, doesn't have to be a mathematician, realizes if you've got an asset worth $90,000, $98,000, and you owe $700,000 on it, it's going to take a long time to pay off. It'll never pay off at the rate of 20 parking places. Because they've already admitted that they're going to have 20 parking places. The city wants to use 3 to 5 of them for public vehicles. They want to give 50% reduction for carpools. And then when you take maintenance away from that and you take usability of the thing, you're looking at $200 a month.
I'm sorry if I missed it. Can you explain how you arrived at the $700,000 figure?
Right, the purchase was $480,000. The tear down of the buildings was about $100,000. The parking lot improvements, from what I understand, are going to be slightly over another $100,000. So we've got $480,000, $580,000, $680,000, just about $700,000.
What are the improvements that cost $100,000?
The grading, the landscaping, and I guess gravel, because I
It's
don't
going to be
think
a gravel parking lot.
it's
correct?
going to be a gravel
Okay.
parking lot. I don't think it's going to have any pavement. But I'm just saying, this is not an investment. This is an expenditure that'll go on for the county or for the city forever. And we'll never pay for it on the parking lot fees. And just in regards to the terrible condition, I own quite a few rentals in Kitsap County, and I don't have, I can't name you but a few handful of houses that don't have some type of mold situation here. That's just the nature of Kitsap County. But you manage it. You don't tear it down, not in my opinion.
Can I respond to that?
Which part, yeah?
The mold was much more serious than I think Mr. Mathis understands. Drywall, you could put your fingers through it. There were water problems that had been there for years. It's a liability the city can't afford to have. I mean, it's just, it was on the advice of the city attorney that we vacated the property. We started looking at the mitigation costs, what it was going to cost to fix it. It was going to cost as much as they paid for the building to fix it. with no guarantee that the problem would go away. So I think that's a prudent decision for the taxpayers. Do we want to put the city in a position of being sued? No, we don't. And that has to do with it. Now, as far as the cost of the parking lot, I agree that the city paid way too much money for the building. We finally agree on something. But I'm not the one who signed the purchase agreement, so I want to be clear on
That was
that.
the previous mayor?
I believe that it was the very last thing she did.
Okay.
The cost of tearing the building down was originally estimated at $20,000. When it was all done, was about $32,000. The cost of doing the parking lot itself was a little over $25,000. That's it. Now, there are 21 spaces of which employees are going to pay $20 a month to park in, and the rest are going to be from city vehicles. That eliminates parking down in the police lot, which frees up people for the court, as well as parking around City Hall. Because city employees were parking in the parking around City Hall and going out there every 2 hours and moving their cars. It seems to me that this is a no-brainer. The other thing, too, to do with that is we have Lofts across the street from the city that has its own parking lot, and when court was at session, usually, people would use that parking. And they would regularly call the city and regularly call the tow truck. And we've eliminated that problem for them as well, so.
So fulfill the need.
Yeah.
Very-
You know, I don't know where Mr. Mathis is getting his cost estimates
That's what
from.
I was going to ask the same question. Where do the $100,000 figures come from?
The best guess estimate that I can come up with looking at the budget, and it's really hard for me to, just like the mayor said, it took him a while to get a grasp on how the budget figures are entered in, and then I haven't had a chance to talk to the treasurer either on how much this gravel work and the landscaping, but I do believe the landscaping is going to cost $20,000. I think I was in a meeting where they were talking about that. So I think both of us have to have more hard figures on this.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll be forthcoming. I would love to see the mayor say, okay, this is what we've got into this. This is what we can expect to get out of it. And let us all decide whether it's an investment or whether it's an outcome. You know, that's all I hope.
Do you anybody ask your question?
Can I just say that I'm not sure that Mr. Mathis got a chance to say what the legislative priority should be? I know.
I did actually say that I would discuss it with the council members and have them decide what their priorities were. Because actually, they're the ones that do make that decision. And I have to, work with them and support their decisions. So that's what I would have done. I would have had several special meetings with the work study meetings and say, okay, guys, what do you want us to concentrate on?
And that's what I've done. That's what we're doing. It's a joint decision. It's not my decision for certain. The council sits down and decides what they want to pursue and what they don't.
What I was
We
going
make
to
recommendations, but that's all.
what I referenced Jim on when we had the city council candidates come in, he asked them about the medical marijuana moratorium. Council's passed a 6-month moratorium, and so I imagine there'll be some discussion during that time. And I was curious your opinion on what is the right fit for your city, or how you're going to try to square with what the state or federal laws are.
Both dispensaries and gardens.
Right now, the planning commission is tasked with looking at the medical marijuana site and the planning or the zoning. We haven't, as yet, that I know of, been tasked with the grow operations. They're two separate things. We've already had one meeting. I've been to 2 of the work studies. One council meeting, 1 work study, where the council has been discussing it, and I was able to hear the attorney for the first time, the city attorney. Hopefully, the city attorney will come to the planning commission this next meeting we have when we start discussing it in earnest, because we really, really need an attorney's advice in this. The problem that I see is I think a problem that you all understand. The federal government says one thing, the state says another thing. The cities and county are kind of in between. They're kind of, if we go this way, we'll be afoul of the federal government. If we go this way, we might run into problems with the state. So that's where we're at right now. We have to make a recommendation within the 6 months. I'm the chairman of the Planning Commission, and I would like us to make a recommendation a lot shorter than that, because at one of the council meetings, we heard people testify that they really didn't want another 6-month moratorium. They wanted us to make a decision. Of course, the majority of them wanted the decision to be, cite these things, let's get them going. A lot of the testimony was, I'm sick, I don't want to go to Seattle, I don't want to go somewhere else to get my medical marijuana. So it's a sticky wicket, so to speak. We need to get more information, legal information for one. And the mayor talked about liabilities. We need to consider the liabilities of the city.
Do you have the sense that the people coming and asking you, that you're saying people are saying, we want these places to open? Is that a majority of city
Well, that was a
residents?
testimony at the
Yeah, I'm asking your opinion on
council
whether,
meeting.
I'm asking your opinion on whether that's a majority of Port Orchard residents feeling that way.
I don't really have that feeling yet, because the Planning Commission has only had one introductory meeting. We need another one, and hopefully it'll be a public meeting where we can take public testimony.
Do you think they would in any way erode the quality of life in Port Orchard if the grow operations or dispensaries?
I have to measure that answer with what I believe and what, as the Planning Commission director, I need to do, and that's, I really need to hear the public as a Planning Commission director, or I mean the chairman of the Planning Commission. But at the same time, I have to kind of set aside what I personally believe, because we're really trying to get all the testimony we can and make the best recommended decision to the city council that we can. So I have an opinion, very strong opinion, but as a planning member, I don't think I should put that forth yet until I hear all the testimony from the public.
Do you have an opinion?
Yeah,
Could you share with us?
of course. Actually, Tim and I substantially agree on this. Although we are looking for the Planning Commission to make some determination on zoning for grow operations as well as dispensaries. But I have to say the same thing he said. You know, we're caught between the federal government and state government, and there's no good answer. And when I go to all of the Association of Washington Cities, like at their last convention, that was a huge topic of discussion. In fact, there was a whole workshop on it. I gave Chris all the information that they gave us. And there's no good answer here. You know, there's just not. Personally, I would like to see the federal government declare it a a controlled substance that could be dispensed through pharmacies. I think that's the answer. But, you know, I'm not the federal government. But I think that's the answer if there's going to be a good answer. That's what it needs to be, because there's no regulation in the dispensaries as they're operated now in other places. And I think that's an issue. How do you know if you're a marijuana patient the quality of what you're getting? So I think that's an issue. And the grow operations, I mean, do we want these in the city parks? No. Do we want them inside of schools? No. Do we want them inside of daycares? No. You know. So I think you're looking at mostly indoor operations if there's going to be these. But, you know, the Planning Commission is supposed to come up with some recommendations for us. But I think Tim and I are substantially agree on that. There's really nothing that the city has any control over with this. I think the moratorium, hoping that the state or the federal governments will sort this out, probably the best way to go right now.
Okay. I have a small business question. Larry, you had said one of your goals was to make it a more business climate that was more friendly. So I want to ask Tim if you think that has been achieved, and then the question to you would
Sure.
be, if you feel you already have done that. I still see empty storefronts when I drive through Port Orchard, so what's going to be done in the next 4 years to continue to address that?
I think that's indicative of the economy right now. I mean, if you drive downtown Paulsbo, it looks the same. So, and look around you here. You know, it's the same thing. I think it's more indicative of the economy than anything we've done. But we do have the shortest permitting of any place in the region. That's a change that I instituted. And It can happen if you want it to. There's no excuse for it taking a year to get a building permit to do something. We processed, when I was elected, we had, I think, 560 something, it's on that sheet, however many it was, but over 500 permits that had not been processed, and we processed those within 60 days. Some of them were as much as 2 years old, and one of them is 5 years old. That's absurd. We're not just business friendly in Port Orchard, we're aggressively business friendly. I am out talking to business people all the time about why coming to Port Orchard is a good idea. I tried to form a task force with the help of the chamber, but didn't really get any help from them about identifying businesses that would be a good fit for Port Orchard. Got an accountant on board who could make the business case to a business owner about why moving to Port Orchard makes good sense for your business. And other business owners that would come and say, dealing with Port Orchard is easy.
Are you talking about industries in general that you would target, or specific businesses?
No, we were looking at specific businesses. What I wanted us to do was go to places like Paulsbo. Bremerton, I think, is a fertile field because of the B&O tax. We don't have a B&O tax, and Bremerton does. I think that's a huge selling point for Port Orchard. Paulsbo, looking at businesses there that would either have a second operation or something like that. And that's the kind of thing we were looking in Gig Harbor the same way. Stuff for downtown, tourist-oriented things. What would be a good fit for downtown? I can think of 3 businesses right now that I think would do well. A kayak rental place, a motor scooter, electric motor scooter renter now that we have those EV charging stations. I think those would be good fits for our tourism businesses. I am working on a marine industry cluster, and next month we'll be convening a meeting that the Business Journal will be sponsoring, not the city, because the city can't sponsor this, but I'll take it upon myself to bear the cost of it. We're going to invite everybody in the marine industry in Kitsap County to come to a meeting. One of our potential speakers, and we're just waiting on the confirmation now, will be the president of Safe Boats. The other will be the owner of Yachtfish Marine. Yachtfish is a company that I helped shepherd through the state, city, and federal permitting process so he can expand his business, create 20 new family wage jobs in Port Orchard. He also owns a company that builds custom yachts. And he told me last week that he has made the decision to move that company to Port Orchard. He's losing his lease in the Port of Tacoma. That will bring probably 50 family wage jobs to Port Orchard. So, and I'm real excited about that kind of thing. But the marine industry cluster, if we can just introduce these people to each other so they know who each other is, so they can to do business with each other. What we found, the guy from Yachtfish, he is expanding the marina that was there. He had a marina there, and it blew down in a
That's what I'm
windstorm
going to
here at
say.
the beginning of the
He
year.
actually isn't expanding it as much as repairing what damage he had.
No, he's expanding the business itself. That's what those
Right.
two big.
But he is relocating the business.
Yes, he will relocate the yacht
That's what
building
you're
business,
telling us
yes.
now.
He's also looking at, he owns another facility on Lake Union, and he's looking at moving that to here. Paul Allen wants to buy his property. So, yeah.
How large is the business over there?
Pardon?
How large is the workforce over there?
I don't know for sure. I don't want to give you a number because I don't know for certain. But at any rate, expanding his business, I mean, if you go by there, you see that great big blue travel lift he's got out there. That is to bring bigger boats in once we got him through the permit process. Now, he has a window that has to do with fish that he can't start construction. Once he gets through that period, he can start construction, and he'll be bringing that big travel lift up and down that pier that he's going to build. That will allow him to take 100-foot boats out of the water and fix them in Port Orchard. You can't do that now. Port Orchard is one of the few places that has marine haul-out facilities left in Puget Sound. There's only a handful, and we have 3 of them. So I think this makes good sense for our town. The other part of that that I was trying to get to was in expanding that marina that blew down. He's just rebuilding in that. Well, we have a company in Port Orchard, Leader Corporation, that makes the pedestals at marinas where you plug in the power and you have the phone and all the other stuff, water and everything. Well, when Steve, the guy from Yachtfish, he ordered those from a company in New Jersey because he didn't know that he could get those in Port Orchard. That's the whole idea of trying to bring these people together. You know, that's a $100,000 plus order for something that could have been made here if he'd have just known. That's the idea behind that.
Okay. Tim, that sounds like a lot of successful things.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I've got a son-in-law that works for Safe Boats, and my son works for Safe Boats. I believe this should have been done when, you remember the SEED program and the big discussion on that? SEED never should have been started. It was a waste of money, it was a waste of time. We should have been looking at this marine cluster thing. Why weren't we? Heaven only knows. We are not out of the woods with Safe Boats right now. Believe me, this all sounds wonderful, but Safe Boats hasn't made a determination if they're going to stay in Kitsap County as yet, at least as far as I know.
Well, this
So
is
the
Port of
point
Bremerton.
being is
Yeah.
that it is past due for this marine cluster groupage, and I think it's very important. That's exactly what our Port of Bremerton needs, is to don't try to reinvent the wheel. Just get marine industries there, because that's what we are, is a marine area in the marine industry.
Translate that over to the city and the places where the city is involved.
Well, the city interfaces with the Port of Bremerton.
Oh, no,
almost on a daily
what I'm
basis.
getting at is the initial question to Larry as far as either business recruitment, making a better climate for businesses. What can Port Orchard do? If you're elected mayor, what are you going to kind of spearhead?
I'm going to work, just like I said, with the marine cluster and try to incorporate that with the Port of Bremerton. The Port of Bremerton has the infrastructure out there to go with it a lot faster than anything Port Orchard has. You talk about a 100-foot boat. Ideally, if you've gone to Yachtfish, there's not a room enough for his machine to turn a 100-foot boat around. It would be very problematic to use that to bring out a 100-foot boat. You may get a 60-foot boat out of the water there. I've got 27 years experience in the shipyard, and I know a little bit about, boats in general. But anyway, the real place for this marine cluster is going to be out at the Port of Bremerton. We need to work with the Port of Bremerton commissioners to try to see it.
You think the mayor's done a good job working with the Port of Bremerton commissioners?
No.
What could be improved upon that?
Well, just get along better with the Port of Bremerton commissioners.
Can you be more specific than get along?
No, I just think that there's been some animosity, there's been some hard feelings over the last couple of years with one port commissioner and the mayor of Port Orchard, and they haven't seemed to work together like they should collaboratively. But I think they're getting better, which is a good thing. But meanwhile, if any of that type of thing happens, the overall public good suffers when stuff like that happens. Just never should be an issue. There never should be these political issues going on. We should work together with the Port of Bremerton. That's what I intend to do.
That was something that our editorial page should criticize in the past. But Larry, what would you say
Well,
to give people confidence that
Sure.
you do have a good relationship with the Port?
We do now. In the very beginning, when I first got to be mayor, I just call this a rookie mistake, okay? I wrote a letter to the port. I had done a public records request to find out what their bonding capacity was on the marina and how soon those bonds were going to be paid off. And what was behind that was the decision by the council to build a parking garage on Prospect Street. They wanted to build a 2-story underground garage, and it was about an $18 million project. Now, the mayor works for the council, not the other way around. And this is the case of the council said, Larry, go out and find us $18 million to build this garage. So I figured, well, the port's got all this money, $45 million for this marina over here. It's time for them to spend some of it in Port Orchard. So I wanted to find out when we could, when that was possible to happen. So I wrote a letter that Commissioner Stokes took exception to, and it was a public issue. It became a public issue. In retrospect, I believe, rather than write that letter and send a copy to the newspaper, I probably shouldn't have sent a copy to the paper, which I did. And that ignited the whole controversy. That's my fault. It was a mistake. I made it. I'll live with it. But since then, Larry and I have patched up our differences and buried the hatchet. And he talked to me just last week about getting the council on board about what it's going to take for getting the pedestrian pathway through where they want to expand the park down at the marina. So our relations are pretty good. I've always had good relations with Bill Mahan. Bill and I have been friends for years and years. And when you look at the two candidates running to replace him, Axel and Sean, I'm friends with both of them. So there's no problem there. Kerry Bozeman's been a friend of mine for years. He is actually kind of a role model for me in a lot of ways. And Tim Thompson, the new CEO there, I've been in Rotary with Tim for 20 years. So there's no problem with the relations there.
The Port is involved in the Marine Custer idea?
Yes. In fact, Bill Mahan brought it to me and said, I think this is a good idea for the city. What do you think? So I think that's indicative of how good our relations are. And I
Actually,
think...
didn't you interview for the job, for Bozeman's job?
No, I did not interview for it.
You didn't?
No, I did not.
I understood you did.
No. I was approached about being interested in it. Was I interested in it, but I did not interview for it.
Really?
Yes. So I don't know where you get your information, but...
Well,
Do any of you have questions? Let me give the opportunity. Chris, is there something that...
I guess I was going to ask, sort of following on this discussion here, can each of you describe your leadership style and the advantages and disadvantages of it?
Well, I'd like to describe my leadership style. Well, actually, I'd like to, first of all, say that I worked for 8 years as Kitsap County Board of Equalization. And at first, I thought, wow, what a job. Everybody hates you. The taxpayer doesn't like you because they believe you work for the assessor's office. The assessor doesn't like you because you find in favor of the taxpayer every now and again. And everybody in the room thinks you're the bad guy. And then you have 2 other board members that are from Central Kitsap and North Kitsap that have decidedly different opinion on things than you have. It turned out to be one of the best experiences of my life. I love it. I'm sorry that I haven't been able to be doing it as much as I have this year because of this campaign. I just don't have the time. So my alternate takes most of my days. But that taught me that my management style should be work with people. Find something that you can work with them. Find something that you can agree with. You may disagree with 20 things, but there's 22 things about them, and 2 of them you can agree with. And you want to focus in on that. In other words, I want to be a confidence builder with people rather than set up animosities and set up differences and be a threatening type. My approach is never to be threatening. It's to always be collaborative. And actually, I ran as county commissioner as a Republican, and I think Commissioner Garrido, actually she appointed me the last time on the Board of Equalization. So apparently I wasn't too distasteful of an opponent that she didn't feel that I could still do my job at the Board of Equalization. So I guess what I'm saying is there's always a way to get collaborative results. You just have to look for them. I'm not going to get in people's face. I'm not going to be threatening. I'm going to work collaboratively. That's what I've done all my life.
My leadership style is different than Tim's. I'm much more direct. I am an objective-based or oriented person, goal-oriented person. I believe you lay out what you want to accomplish and then you figure out how to get it done. And if that approach doesn't work, you take a different approach. Those of you that have known me over the years know that I'm very direct, and that's the way I get things done. I think that I've accomplished more for Port Orchard in 3.5 years than has been done in the last 20. Our former city treasurer, who had been there for under 5 mayors, wrote a letter to the editor in response to something Tim had written and said that. Said that, she found me to be refreshingly direct, innovative, hardworking, and a get the job done person. I believe everything that you do, you have to work with other people. You have to be able to collaborate with others to get things accomplished. But you don't have to collaborate on things that don't benefit you if you don't need to. My job is to move the city forward and to move it forward as aggressively as possible. I am an aggressive person. That is my leadership style. But I also know what my limitations are. I think if you look at the people that I have hired for the city, I've hired the best people available. And our staff is the envy of the city, or the envy of the other cities, I should say. And like I said, ask the other elected officials. Don't take my word for it. What I do is I surround myself with people that know more than me, and I take their advice. It's just like, why do you hire a lawyer? You know, because you don't know what to do in a situation. What I do, when in my own business that I've owned for 32 years, my approach has been very simple. That the people that are doing the work are closer to the work than I am, and they are closer to the solutions than I am. And when they come to me and would say, Larry, you know, we got a problem here, my first question is, what do you think we should do? And that's how I approach leadership. It's not standing up there thumping on your chest and doing stuff. It's just finding the best solutions, working with the people that are the players, of, you know, sorting them out from the posers and getting stuff done.
We're nearing the end of the time we've allotted for this, and I'd like to give each of you 2 minutes to kind of conclude, kind of a parting shot. I'd appreciate it if in that 2 minutes you could somehow tell us how you feel that you separate yourself from the other candidate. We'll let Larry begin and Tim will get the last one.
Well, I think you heard Tim's platform. I think I separate myself by what I've accomplished, not by not knowing what I'm talking about. I'm real proud of what we've gotten done. I'm very proud. Port Orchard at one time was kind of the stepchild of Kitsap County. In the Vision 2020 plan, they called it Kitsap County's junk drawer. Well, I took personal offense to that. I'm sorry. In fact, when I first got elected, I used to say, we have a new mascot. Are any of you familiar with the movie Network? About a 25-year-old movie. And Howard Beale, the guy, the mad prophet of the airways, sticking his head out the window going, we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. I used to say Howard's our mascot because, you know, we almost lost the county seat because the city was asleep when they were trying to put the Norm Dick Center together. That's inexcusable. So I think if you look at the endorsements that I have, you'll see that they're bipartisan. I mean, I've been endorsed by Congressman Dix and I've been endorsed by Rob McKenna. I've been endorsed by every one of our legislative delegation, and I've been endorsed by former Secretary of State Ralph Monroe. People that know the difference, people that know what needs to happen. These are people that believe in me. These are people that have said, Larry, you're doing a good job. Keep it up. You have my support. And if you look at that list, you're going to find your own friends and neighbors on it. So I really, really believe that things that we want to get done is, I'm working real hard on getting us a YMCA. That's my main project for the next 4 years, is to get that done. We've become a very green and innovative city under my leadership. Using Apple iPads was a big thing. Using the EV charging stations was huge. You know, the iPads were real.
That was
That's my time? Okay, well, never mind. Okay, well, vote for Larry, please.
Tim.
Well, like he said, his style is ready, shoot, aim. Mine is collaborative. Mine's getting along to get along and to get something accomplished. I don't believe hard feelings ever accomplished anything in life. And he talked about a movie he liked. Have you ever seen Head of State? Chris Rock? That was a good movie. He was basically a nobody, and he was running for head of state, for presidency. And his speech was always, that ain't right, that ain't right. Well, a $700,000 parking lot, that ain't right. Fighting with the very people that you need to collaborate with, like the port, that ain't right. I'm sorry, these things aren't right. I don't care what his style is. People don't like his style. That's why I'm running. People are very, very disappointed in some of the things that this mayor has done. So here I am. So we have a choice. It's a very clear choice. I hope you don't think we're that much alike, because there is definitely some differences here. And that's what I'm offering the public. One thing for sure, he says I go right for it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the voters, because they're the ones I represent. Now, at one time, he said something that I didn't understand the system, and that it was simple, and that I was a cheerleader. And you know, I was supposed to be offended, I guess. But you know what? You're right. I have simple solutions, and I am a cheerleader. I love my town. I don't want to see it drastically change. So that's what Tim Mathis is about, giving the voters an option. That's all I'm about. But if they vote for me, I'll do the job. And at the end of 4 years, we've got Mr. Capola's record for his 4 years. We'll have my record for 4 years, and we can have another go at it, maybe. Thank you.
Well, thanks both of you for coming in. Appreciate the time.